to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash,
grades and degrees don't define your intellect,
and Dale Hummel.
Do what is right, not what is easy.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello.
Well, Ryan, we did record a Beyond the Circus with a lot of current events today, but I think we can throw a few in. I have some big news. Huge news since yesterday.
Do what?
Huge news.
Glad I'm sitting down.
It's not necessarily good news for some in my area.
Less
than 15 miles from here tomorrow. Guess who's coming?
Trump?
I wish. Wouldn't that be great?
That'd have been much. I would have flown there probably.
Creepy Sleepy Joe will be in the area.
Why?
I'm not sure. I just heard about this morning, I believe. I believe he was searching for a wheat farm or a grain farm, and the rumor is he wants to talk about fertilizer cost. I don't know why he'd want to bring up something that's that negative. So maybe that's not it. I'm not sure. Maybe he's coming to a wheat farm to thank the farmers for growing wheat so there's not a world shortage. How's that sound?
Did he win Illinois as a state?
Oh, had to. Yeah, I'm sure he did. Remember, we Chicago. It's not Illinois. It's Chicago.
I don't think he won Indiana.
No, probably not Indiana. But if that doesn't surprise me. Illinois, it's very, very difficult for a Republican to win here. Very difficult. Yeah, Chicago just dominates.
Anyway, I'm going to be quiet because you already called for public executions or whatever.
No, I didn't.
You did something.
Not on Beyond the Ring. That's a whole different.
I said legal. On Beyond the Circus, so okay, I'm going to be quiet. But I would suggest you not go. That's what that is my suggestion.
You know what? I can't. Actually, a former student of mine had called me yesterday, and I didn't get him called back until this morning, and that's what he was calling about. He was a Biden appointee here to the state to oversee all the FSA offices. So he was calling to see if I'd even be interested.
You have a student that works for Biden.
I did not realize he was a Democrat or a liberal at the time. Actually, I would have assumed the exact opposite.
He did this willingly.
Yes, calls himself an old school Democrat.
I'm going to need this man's phone number.
To my knowledge, he may be one of two people that are liberal that listen. I'm going to need this man's
phone number.
Yes, I will get that for you. As long I believe he had intentions of possibly taking me if I was going to behave, and we didn't get any further than that because I didn't call him back until today. And it sounds like there's only 50 people going to be there.
And he wants you in a room with the president and 50 other people.
Probably a cornfield is more like it. But,
I don't care. This man does not want me anywhere near the president with only 50 people there.
I get it. It shocks me that he's coming out.
No, because you would I would rip into the old man in front of God and everybody.
If I would have gave my word that I was not going to say anything negative, I would have held to that. But what I did want is I did want to get close enough to him in person to see what his cognitive skills appear to be just one-on-one or not one-on-one.
I'd have been yelling in the back. They would have.
Well, you still have a chance to do that because the local farmers put together a little post or a little meme or graphic, whatever you want to call it, about let's not welcome Biden, get alongside the road with your American flags, and Biden not
Trump
welcome signs, Trump signs.
Yes.
So I'm going to tell you, right in this area, in the farming community, I'm not talking about in the towns, but outside of the towns, the farming communities it is going to be 99% conservative, period. So he's coming into an area that just doesn't. I'm just going to say they just doesn't want him. Period.
I'm going to say you need to drop everything and go and videotape this.
So Chase is thinking about skipping school.
You want me to go into hospitals when people are dying of Rona and go down to the border and get shot at? But you won't stand up to an 80-year-old man in the middle of a cornfield.
Okay, I don't know what the perimeter is, but I'm going to try to be there as close as they allow me to get and maybe alongside the road to welcome him.
I think Chase should go because Chase will talk his way to the front and then Chase will handle this.
And Dylan is committed to going. Chase is not sure whether he's going to school.
I don't know what Dylan's political affiliations are.
He's pretty strong. I'm pretty strong. And I think vocal about it for the most part.
Working in Chicago. He chose to work in Chicago.
He did instead of Austin. liberal versus liberal, but one liberal city is in a much better state.
Well, okay. They're both very liberal cities. I'm going to say that. And Austin is actually probably more liberal than Chicago.
I don't know if that's possible.
I promise you it is. But he would have way better people watching in Austin. And there are way more bars.
Probably a little bit safer.
Oh, it's definitely safer than Chicago. They don't shoot people in Austin. We just yell at them and laugh.
Yeah, that's a lot better. That's much better.
I mean, even though you can carry weapons in Texas, they really don't in Austin. It is actually a very pretty much safe town, and Abbott has done a really good job of cleaning out the homeless in downtown, and so it's much better than it has been. So yeah, it's good.
I agree. I encouraged him to go to Austin versus Chicago, so he's looking at a possible transfer at some point. But so Joe will be in town. I will do my best to document, to welcome him with something, a sign. Actually, Dylan was going to stop by and pick up he has some type of Brandon sign that he was going to take with him. So hopefully he brings that back with us and we can partake in that tomorrow. I talked about food shortages on the global scale, actually on our Beyond the Circus that we recorded this week that's already released. If you haven't heard it and you're interested in the world being upside down issues or political issues, I strongly recommend you go listen to that one.
Because it was way better than I thought it was going to be, other than Dale might have planned an assassination on somebody. But other than that, it was fine.
If for nothing else, you should go listen to who that is.
Yeah.
So I did go into some detail that I'm concerned about the balance of food and feeding the world. And it's always a very fine line that we're walking, but we have a lot of things that are compounding effects coming into play as we speak right now that may cause some issues. And I didn't go into a lot of the numbers this weekend Beyond the Circus, but you've had a drought in South America. Argentina produces 5% of the world wheat. You have the Russia-Ukraine war, and Russia produces 20% of the world wheat, with Ukraine at 8%. So you have all these things compounding with the supply chain issues. If the war were to stop today, Ryan, you're still 2 or 3 years out before you get back into that production scheme. So it's an issue, and I'm fearful that I'm not. And I said this on Beyond the Circus. I'm not sure that we're not going to have food here. We will. It's just going to be considerably more expensive. But there's going to be a lot of lesser countries out there that simply are not going to have access to it. And it's going to be a problem, I fear. Belarus, they're one of the largest fertilizer suppliers. And here in the U.S., we're probably going to step up, and between the U.S. and Canada be okay. But South America produces almost none. They've got to bring it all in from overseas. And that's going to compound the yields. And it is a situation that it's going to put a lot of pressure on things. Once wheat gets to a certain price, then we start looking at other grains to replace it. Then it puts pressure on those supplies. So it just continues to compound itself. And this is probably going to be more than what we've seen here from natural type disasters. And you combine the flooding, the droughts, along with the Ukraine war and the sanctions on Russia. All of these coming together are going to cause some issues. And I can relate it back to pre-COVID, Ryan. If you were to talk to people in grocery stores or retail stores, whatever it is, they always talk about shelf space and how valuable shelf space is. And if you're trying to push one of your products into a chain grocery store, sometimes you have to pay them to put that out on the shelf for X amount of space. The shelves were full. They were busting at the seams. During COVID, did it get a little less? Absolutely, kind of bare at times. We're building back up slowly, but we're still not where we were. We don't have that just abundance where pre-COVID, there was never a worry about food shortage. It was, oh no, we might not have this exact variety that I would like. And I think we're almost back to that. There's plenty of food in the grocery stores, but we may not get the brand that we want, or that one was sold out for that moment. So there's some of those things going on, but I hope these things don't come to play and that there's not as big of issues, but it concerns me that there are some compounding issues.
Well, don't have a baby. I think you're a little old to have a baby because there's no baby formula.
No baby formula. I don't know about they're limiting it. I assume once that came out, everybody started hoarding it. So it just even made it more of an issue. That's not a good situation. Did you hear the hero, Mr. Musk, what he said on Twitter about, is this going to be a forum that Mr. Trump can come back to if he chooses?
No, I did not.
Yeah, he openly invited the president back and wants it to. He thought it was morally wrong to ban him. to ban.
Trump is very happy that Elon bought Twitter, but he says he's not going back.
No, he's not going to rejoin the platform. I don't think it has anything to do with Elon. I think he's just pissed and he wants, obviously, Truth Social to be the platform of choice.
I don't think that's going to work out.
I don't know yet. I'm hopeful. I think I have 3 followers now. You, Clifton, and somebody that I don't know.
I would like Trump to go back to Twitter just because I liked the fact that not only did he love, I mean, the whole thing is, okay, so like, everybody think about what they love to do the most in this world, and then think about, like, somebody saying you can never do that again, okay? Trump was the biggest tweeter in the history of the world before he ever ran for president. Like, he loved to tweet, and so I would like for him to go back just to see all the liberals' heads blow off, but like, even if it was just for one tweet, just put one back up there just to see their little heads explode. But he says he's not. So there you go.
That makes perfect sense. He's pretty firm that he's not going back onto Twitter. So I'm going to assume as such until proven differently.
So I don't. Something's different. No.
Well, I think because we had Beyond the Circus, that's really all I have for current events.
Well, that's terrible, Dale.
I understand. I know.
What if these people don't want to listen to you ramble on about everything on Beyond the Circus?
I would like to bring up something alien.
I am going to bring up something. So Biden gave a speech. And
he did.
Yes. And so anyway, basically he mumbled and stumbled and did all these other things. But the reason inflation is so high, like the highest it's ever been in 40 years and all this other stuff, it is because the Republicans. That's it.
Yes. For the most part, that's what he pointed fingers to.
Yeah, it's the Republicans. They are the enemies. He even said, I want us to be crystal clear about the problem. And he said it was the pandemic, which I didn't even know there was a pandemic anymore because like you don't hear anybody talk about it, but evidently there was one. It's over, but there was one. And then it's the Republicans are not helping him pass his wonderful,
monster spending bill
things that will make everything happy and all this other stuff. And I think he tried to blame Putin again. And
he did throw Putin under the bus a little bit.
I mean, so basically what he did this time is he blamed Rona again. He blamed Putin again. Now he's blaming the Republicans. So when clearly the American people weren't buying the Rona excuse, they didn't buy the Putin excuse. So if we just keep adding to it, it's going to work, right?
You notice that he's got a little keyword or tagline he's pushing really hard the last few days?
Oh, God, no. What was it?
Yeah, what does he call it? The extreme MAGA? No, not.
Oh, extreme MAGA. Yeah.
I think that's it. He thinks, I mean, he's throwing, he is on that. I mean, I don't know who told him to say it, but he is on it as hard as he can be, that MAGA is the worst of the worst of the worst. I believe he's talking about you and I and most of our listeners.
Me, for sure. Without a doubt.
I think he's talking about 50% of the population or better.
And then the only other thing, and this is all like whatever, but so did you hear about the fugitive that escaped in Alabama with the help of the lady?
I did end up in Evansville, Indiana, I believe.
Is that where they ended up?
Yep.
Okay. So all this is unfolding today. But anyway, like my question is on this woman, like she was a devout, law-abiding.
We don't know this.
Well, she was like employee of the year at the jail like multiple times.
Oh,
obviously,
I was unaware.
She was an officer of the law. All this other stuff, right? Okay. And like, have you seen pictures of this man?
I have. 6'7", something like that.
He is not attractive. So what? And like, right before she met him and got in a cahoots to him, she put all these plans on social media, how she was going to retire and move to the beach and all this other stuff. What could this man say to this lady to get him, to break him out of jail, run off with him, all this other stuff? And then the poor woman shoot us. Well, I don't.
Yeah, ultimately get caught and she shoots herself.
I don't know if that's been confirmed, but earlier
it has been confirmed. She shot herself and she is dead.
Okay.
Dead.
Because I know he's dead. I know she's dead, but like when it happened, he was saying he didn't do it, but nobody had confirmed. But I guess it's confirmed now. Like, I need to know.
You would like that power of persuasion, wouldn't you?
Oh, the most.
It must be pretty good. I'm with you.
I mean,
and how do they think they're going to hide traveling across the country with their pictures everywhere? He's a monster height-wise. That wasn't working. They should have got themselves in a boat and paddled their ass to Mexico ASAP.
Something. I mean, literally, they were in Alabama. They could have got a boat and got somewhere. I mean, and she sold her house. And I do not know. I do not know. But
your biggest concern is on your gaydar, he is not attractive, is what you're getting at.
No, he is not attractive.
Maybe he's attractive to females. Maybe it's just you.
I will take his. No, he's got ears like Dumbo. Okay, I do not know, but this is not the first case of this. I mean, you have seen this before, but like I really do like. There's got to be somebody that has studied this because this has happened many times in history where like an inmate and a prison guard, they like fall in love and it can go both ways. Man, prison guard, female, all this stuff, whatever. Is it just being in that enclosed environment that's like, so, I don't know, but
I think it has a psychological impact. There's no question.
It's got to.
And don't we have now with you just say what sex you are, a male can go to a women's prison now in some states?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there is.
Does that blow my mind?
Seriously, like 2 weeks ago, a man who identifies as a woman, he's in a prison, he gets 4 women pregnant.
How'd that work out for him?
But he's a woman.
He's a woman. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and then some idiot. Oh, see, now you've got me. Some idiot woman, I don't even remember what this was about, but like they were talking about the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade and all this stuff. And this woman was on TV. I think it was MSNBC. Like, I think they're worse than CNN now. I'm serious. And they're getting circle back. So it will continue to get worse. But she said that, if Roe versus Wade overturned, it doesn't only affect women, it affects everyone with a uterus. Now, I am not a biologist, as our lovely newly Supreme Court said, but I think only women have a uterus. I think.
I would agree with, but I don't know that the term woman, man, male, female, I don't think that means any to a lot of the population. That means nothing anymore. There is no real. What was her name? Our new Supreme Court justice. She openly said she cannot define what a woman is. I saw that. I
listened. I saw. Yeah.
So back to this guy that broke out or convinced this guard to break her out and sell her house and all these things. You're saying he could not even talk you into buying his meal, buying him dinner or anything?
Oh God,
no drink late at night, nothing.
No, no. No. I mean, this man is truly. Powers. I mean, he is truly unfortunate looking. I mean, I'm just like
just great. I don't know that he had anything to lose. I assume he had life in prison, and that's what he's going back to, right?
That said, that's why he did, because he was convicted for 2 murders and all this other stuff. But like, so if they're okay, here's my thing.
You are wound up now on this.
Well, I find things like this a little fascinating and a little like crazy. But anyway, like if one of the 2 people were going to shoot themselves, it should have been him. He was already in jail for 2 murders. This was not going to help anything. Like, yeah.
Well, what if he goes back? If he did it once, can he do it again?
I guess maybe
that power of persuasion that he has that you're seeking.
He needs a little better game plan after he convinces someone else to fall in love with him and break him out of prison. Like they need a better escape plan.
How would that conversation how would that even have started?
That is why I brought this up. Like, what does the 6'7" Dumbo-eared man say to this woman? Be like, so this is what we're gonna do. I loved you, and No.
I
don't believe it. Okay, this is how Biden got elected. End point. There you go.
I'm with you. No, I think that summarizes it so well. Okay, with that, do you have some BTR JLA information?
Well, I don't have I have a top 10 and I have some sponsors, but okay. So we started the month off with the all around, and like I said, we're just going to go through very organized. And so right now, today, I am going to do the top 10 overall lamb members. And the same girl that was winning the all around is Piper Liska of Yuma, Arizona. She is winning the sheep overall standings right now with 275 points. Claire Murrieta from Stanfield, Arizona is second. Paisley Carlson, which I think that Dale is somehow biased against because he mentioned her.
She's just a very, very good showman.
After I mentioned her name last week, I think you're biased. Glad you don't count the points. But anyway, Orland, California is third. Hannah Seaver is fourth. Haley Seaver, I'm assuming they're siblings because they both live in Redwood Valley, California, and they are next. Haley Beard from California and Arizona is killing it in the sheep and goats. Like, this is scary. I like the top 7. 8.
That's pretty good.
8. Wyatt Murrieta is 8. Finally, somebody from Texas. Hayden Schrader is 9th. And then Gabrielle Root from Carmel, Indiana is 10th.
So we did fall in there 9th and 10th outside of the...
Finally.
There's a lot of shows right now on the West Coast.
Arizona and California. All you sheep people from everywhere else, Arizona and California, they whip it up on y'all. Y'all going to have to go out there and do some stuff. And then I do have a sponsor, and again, I talked about them last week. I didn't have their information, but I do want to sincerely thank again Maddie Curley family and Curley Cattle Company. And I think this sums up because there's lots of people. I mean, we love all our sponsors, but like we've mentioned very times, I mean, some of these people are just families that they don't want to plug a product or anything like that. Well, the Curleys called and they wanted to sponsor Region 1 cattle. And it was already taken. She said, you know what? It's fine. I'm still going to sponsor the region. Put me wherever you need me. If you get sheep or whatever sponsor, I'll do whichever one is not sponsored. So we have
that is really good.
Yeah, we have another Region 1 sponsor. I don't know which one yet because we're going to hope that 2 other species step up and sponsor. If nobody does, then we'll just put the 3 little things in a hat and draw one out, I guess. But Curly,
I recommend the goats.
Of course you would. Curley Cattle Company is located in California, in Central California. They are a family-owned business that is run by Maddie and her son, Aaron Curley. They run 45 head of cows and show breeding cattle, and they show and compete and sell animals on a national level. They focus on producing high-quality stock to sell to the youth. Curley Cattle has donor partnerships with a few high-profile breeders throughout the U.S. They currently put in approximately 75% of their cell calves as embryos, and then Aaron's retired show heifers as well. The Curleys will hold 2 online sales this fall in September and October, selling prospect steer calves as well as heifers. Curley Cattle Company is thankful for all the experiences they've gained throughout their youth showing experiences in the junior livestock industry, and they are excited to give back to this organization and sponsor the new BTR JLA. So Maddie and Curley Cattle Company, thank you very much for your Region 1 sponsorship. We just got to get 2 more, and then Region 1 will be totally sponsored.
That's awesome. Huge thank you to Curley family. That is greatly appreciated, especially when the species you're in was sponsored, that you just divert wherever we need to put it. That's awesome. Thank you. Ryan, as you are aware, we've had many.
You have no sponsors?
No, I don't. We're trying to do less commercialization. We'll bring some sponsors in here. I tend to forget about our sponsors once in a while, but we need to bring some in and put them in there once in a while. But when you have sponsors, then it takes up too much time. So we're going to kind of bounce back and forth a little bit on how many we bring in.
I think all your sponsors ditched you is what I think.
They might have. They may have. I have one that I'm pretty excited about that we're gonna break out once I
have a new one.
A new one that we're not going to talk about yet. I'm still evaluating the product. I'm not going to jump in on it until I
forgot.
Feel
that's why we don't have any sponsors. Dale has to get all the free stuff sent to him and make sure that it is worthy of Dale's signature of approval.
Okay, so as you're aware, we've had a lot of requests about covering showmanship, even though we've hit it in several different episodes, maybe not just specific one species, boom, boom, boom. But we've had a lot of requests for more detail across
the most
in showmanship
requested thing.
Yeah, I think it probably is
showmanship, without a doubt.
So in turn, we're going to do a 3-part series by Ryan's request last week. He says it's time to do it. We just need to do 3 of them. We can't schedule anything else until we have those done. So the series will be broken up into swine as an episode. We are going to condense goats and sheep, and I don't know if that's fair, but it works. And then cattle.
You show them almost exactly the same.
I don't know. That is. We're going to talk about that when we get to it.
The principles of showing a goat and a sheep are basically the same. Yes, there are differences, but the principles are the same.
With that, we're going to lead off today.
Before we go, what? Before we go any further, I just want to say I'm excited about doing this. It was my idea. I want to do it, but now we're going to cover this. And we will take questions and all this. But every time somebody requests more showmanship, I'm going to say, revert back to episode number.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Because we do get so many requests about showmanship. And we've already done 3 episodes on showmanship. But we're going to break it down by species. And we will have question and answer about showmanship. But if y'all whenever we get a new request about showmanship, Dale, who runs all this, is going to say, please revert back to episode number at least for a year or so.
Fair enough. And then we can update because we will change our mind by then. Maybe.
Yes, exactly.
So we're going to lead off today with anything and everything about swine showmanship. We will start with swine today, and Ryan is going to get wound up. So I want to bring one thing in to start.
And I'm going to get wound up.
Okay. You can go after I bring that up. Okay. And I state this when I'm in showmanship and not necessarily just swine, but anything, but sometimes even especially swine. I want to be careful that when Ryan and I tell you something about showmanship, remember every judge is going to like something a little bit different and have their own preferences depending on and we talked about before, depending on their experiences in life and so forth. So if you want to win showmanship, if that is your goal, not to hold your principle on how you want to do it, but if you want to win, don't be afraid to tweak. If you go out and watch him or her judge a showmanship class and she makes some comments or he makes some comments, don't be afraid to adjust a little bit because they're not all going to be the same. So accommodate the judge's preference if you can. That doesn't mean you need to go to the next show and do that same thing. And also, I'm going to take it all the way around because, Ryan, I know you've heard this as well. I've heard it so many times. I will be out in showmanship and sometime I'm visiting with the kids about what I like and dislike. And at that time, or maybe after the show, or maybe a parent, they'll come up and said, well, such and such in showmanship 25 years ago said, don't do this or do this. Whether it even made any sense or not, they continue to do it. So be careful. Don't be afraid to think for yourself, and it needs to make sense and it needs to be logical. Sure, adjust for that showmanship judge, but go back to your basics. And maybe that's what Ryan and I are going to try to do today is just cover those absolute basics that I hope aren't going to change a whole lot from judge to judge.
Yeah, and I do think that is the big thing is I want to cover the basic principles of all of them, and then I go and we've done that before, but going a little more in depth on each species about showmanship. But as Dale said, every showmanship judge is different, and I think he makes up a very valid point. The only way, if you are your goal is showmanship. That's what drives you. That's what you want the most. There's only 2 ways after you get the principles down and become an excellent showman and all this other stuff. There's only 2 ways to better your chances in showmanship. One, if you know who the showmanship judge is going to be, you need to research that person and find out a lot of these judges, there's articles online. There's 900 million videos of them judging shows, whatever. Go back, listen to what they said, or find somebody that knows, ask around, say, hey, Have you ever seen XYZ judge showmanship? What does that person like? What does that person dislike? Whatever. If you can't do any research or whatever, you can go up there if you're not in the first division and listen to what they say and pick up little tips and stuff like that. Now, I'll be honest, I am the worst because I don't like to give a lot of tips away and stuff like that. And so I limit what I say in showmanship a lot because I know there are kids up there that are listening, and I want them to just come out there and show to me and not take the little things that I've said, but they all listen to the podcast anyway. So, I mean, it all comes out here anyway, but those are the two ways to excel under a specific showmanship judge. So if you know they've got a pet peeve or you know they like something really well, you are going to have to adjust and tweak to all those things. I think the first thing, and this sounds simple and stupid, and I'm going to say it for 3 weeks in a row, but I'm going to start with clothing. Again, I do not care what you really wear as long as you look professional, you're fairly clean. I am going to get on a little bit of a soapbox, even though it is pigs. I don't think you have to wear boots. I wear boots every time I judge a show, every time I ever showed. That's fine. That's me. I don't think you have to wear boots. I do think that I notice more and more every single show if it is a leather type shoe other than a tennis shoe or a cloth like shoe.
No flip-flops. No flip-flops.
No, Dale, I don't think I've ever seen anybody showing flip-flops.
I've seen a goat judge in flip-flops.
Oh, yes, I will say no Crocs. I did see a woman judging Crocs, and I didn't see somebody.
And I bet there's been some kids showing Crocs.
Let's not. Let's just not.
I bet it's happened.
Let's not. But other than that, I don't think there's much about, clothes fit, they're clean, whatever. Anything other than that, I will say that I am noticing footwear more and more. And I'm just going to give you a tip under me. If you are going to wear like a tennis shoe or a cloth shoe, let's not be white. I notice white shoes, like boom, and you're already.
And definitely not after Labor Day or what is that?
I don't even care about that. I just don't want to say it, because you're already at a big disadvantage. But so that's the thing on. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think I can. I want to tune in just a little bit here because I think it goes right along with that, and it's going to tie into this. And I'm sure you have it down to cover as well. Coincidentally, I spoke with my nephew Cade here a couple weeks ago about showmanship, and it wasn't.
I missed Cade. We should bring Cade back on.
And he had just gotten done doing a showmanship clinic, so he's wanting to tell me about this showmanship clinic. And he comes out.
You're going to get me wound up on showmanship clinics now.
Okay. So he comes out and he talks about the first 3 steps being your resume. And I get it. I think that first impression is going to be so strong. And just what Ryan talked about, even your clothing is going to play a role. You have those white tennis shoes on. Ryan's it's not going to be perfect.
Not a good headline of the resume.
And guess what? And Ryan will verify this. I know he will. We don't agree on everything, but this is easy. That first impression, it sinks in, it burns into your brain pretty strong.
And it does not leave.
No, it's going to take something pretty dramatic to change it. So Kate will talk about those first 3 steps, just about determine where we're at. I mean, it's not 100%, but it's pretty darn close. So there's a lot of things that come into play with that, where how you're dressed, your mannerisms, your desire, what that you want to succeed. Just that's your resume. You need to put yourself out there. Hey, I'm here to succeed, and I'm doing what I need to do in presenting myself in that manner. But no, I'm right there, and the dress is going to play a part. And if your shirt's not tucked in, if you're this or that, I mean, there's just so many things that come into play. And Ryan, I'm with you. I don't think you have to wear a specific thing, but I would like something that I guess I call appropriate, and I don't even know if that's the right term.
I just don't think tennis shoes are appropriate in a show ring. I'll say it. I'll just say it.
I'm with you, and I would agree. I don't need boots, and I don't have. I prefer boots in the cattle ring. I just do, and right, wrong, and different. The other species, I don't have to have it, but I tell you what, if you're confused about what to wear and you're not real sure, that's you're pretty safe bet.
I would also tell you, because I get this question asked a lot, and then we'll move on to something other than clothing. A lot of people ask me, long sleeve, short sleeve, all this other stuff. And this is literally my response every time. I would take one of each, go up there, see what the judge has on. If the judge has on a long sleeve shirt, Boom. Put that one on. If the judge has on a short sleeve shirt, you're safe. I am going to caution you girls on this. I do not mind y'all wearing sleeveless shirts in the regular show, as long as they're not, like showing a whole lot of stuff that doesn't need to be showing. I do notice them in showmanship, even in the heat of summer. And it's not like as bad as tennis shoes, but like they could have put on a sleeve shirt.
You see, I'm bad about this. Remember, we talked about in the very beginning, judges are going to have their personal preference. I prefer, I'm not saying I won't use somebody in a short sleeve shirt or even a girl in a sleeveless shirt, but I prefer a long sleeve shirt, period. Yep. That's my preference. Too.
That's why.
Now that may not be everybody's, guys. That right. There's going to be a lot of variation in that.
But I mean, I judge in a long sleeve shirt every single time because I'm afraid if my mother saw me a picture in a short sleeve shirt, then I would get disinherited, and I've worked too hard to do that. But anyhow, I think I think in all things showmanship, if you have a question, go up there, see what the judge has on, and if long sleeve, short sleeve, boots, whatever. What they dressed, how they feel appropriate to come judge that show. So you can't go wrong on those types of questions, long sleeve, short sleeve, boots, tennis shoes, whatever, following the judge's lead. That's just a general rule of thumb there.
That does not mean run out and try to do your eyelashes and your nails and everything to look just like Ryan. You don't have to do that part.
Take way too much time. Way too much time. And then I am going to give a small little thing on showmanship clinics since you brought it up. And this is going to be unpopular and I don't care. So I think showmanship clinics are great. I think they help kids all the time. I think if you want to send your kid to a showmanship clinic, I think it is a great idea to do all that. And I do not know of one that I would bad showmanship clinic. Bad. Don't send your child there. I don't know of any of that. I do also think that all showmanship clinics should do just what Dale said at the start of this. This is what we believe. This is what we think. But again, our word is not the gospel. It is not law. It is not all this other stuff. And I don't think they do that enough. I think they need. No,
I'm with you 100%.
I think they're getting a little far on the thing is that what we say is absolute. And it is what it is. And that's not the truth. I mean, they have a lot of great knowledge and they are very smart, all of them. But just remember, even when you send that kid to the showmanship clinic and they're going to absorb a lot of things, no one, not me, not a showmanship, no one is the absolute final word except the person standing in that ring on that day.
And I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of parents and families to understand. I think that there's the assumption, especially early on in your show careers, that all showmanship judges, if one judge says to do this, then you have to do it for all of them. That is so wrong. Absolutely wrong.
And I need to say why I bring this up, because I cannot tell you how many times after showmanship, somebody will say, well, you said that I didn't do this or I did this and I went to XYZ showmanship clinic and they said that was the way you were supposed to do it and you didn't like it. I was like, okay. I mean,
next.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I have got that increasingly more and more in the last year. And again, I'm all for showmanship clinics. I think they help, but also remember the final word on that day in that ring is not who taught you at the showmanship clinic, unless they happen to be judging the show. It is whoever the judge is. So there, I've said my piece on that. Now I can move on. I want to bring up something that Dale said that Cade, I had never heard Cade say that, but I think that's real good. I think that first 3 steps resume, I think that's very important. I am very honest about showmanship when I judge and when I do talk. And I tell at the end of almost every showmanship, or I make brief comments, I say that, you know what, that first 10, 15 seconds, it is what it is. And it's never going to, I mean, I can tell you in the first 10 to 15 seconds, who's there to win it, who's there to be out there, and who's not going to make the cut. Pretty much with 99% authority. And it is more than the way you are dressed, but that isn't it. It is your confidence. It is your poise. It is your body language. It is the way that you are reacting with that pig. Because, coming out of the gate a lot of times is probably one of the hardest things. They don't want to step over the thing, all this other stuff. All of those things you can read in the first 15 seconds. You can tell, does this pig and this showman, have they worked together before? Has this pig been exercised? Because you know what? If that thing blurts out of the gate like it's in the pig races at the State Fair of Texas, odds are pig hasn't probably had enough exercise since you got to the show. And so all of those things you can tell relatively early. And again, those first impressions, they don't move much.
Very, very little. I'm with you 100% there. And it just is what it is, guys. And I don't think we're just speaking for Ryan and I think it's pretty universal. And we say everybody's different. And I'm sure there are some differences, but that's something, even if you don't realize it, subconsciously that's happening.
Yeah. And so getting into the basics and principles of swine showmanship, and I'm probably going to get on a little bit of a soapbox here and there. And I don't mean to, but
I'm going to, and I intend to. I'm good with it.
I get more than any other species. I'll say this, more than any other species, I hear parents yelling instructions at the kids in hog shows more than any, and I'm not saying yelling, talking, whatever, instructing them from outside of the ring more than any other species. Most times I find it comical, but I think the thing to do is you go in there, you get your first look, let the rest of them be respectful to the other exhibitors, let them get their first look. When they're all in there, go at it. What do you think I hear the most, Dale, when the parents are in the background?
Heads up.
No. Drive at him. Get him.
Drive at it.
Go to it. All this stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Especially when you're pulling the others out, trying to look at the others.
Let me explain something to everybody, and I'm talking to you parents too. And again, I will say that this is pretty universal. You cannot see anything when the hog is at your feet. Okay? So this drive at him, go at him.
I can read top shape a little bit.
Okay, Dale, that's pretty obvious. But I mean,
I'm with you. I would rather they yell drive for the open hole so you can get
noticed. Thank you. Why don't they say that?
Drive for the hole. Go find the empty spot.
Get out from the pack.
Drive away from him.
Or get out of the pack. Whatever. Something that makes sense instead of go at him. Drive at him. Oh, God. But anyway, I think the thing is like when a judge, whether you're in showmanship or you're in the regular show, when a judge wants to move in, especially in a hog deal, because those hogs are always constantly moving. When a judge needs to go in to read something, close inspection on that animal, they're going to walk to it and do that. But most of it, you're trying to compare that one to another one. And when they're all moving at different times, the one at your feet, not going to get the comparison made. I'm putting that out there for the world to marinate on.
If you have a hog that you don't want us to evaluate, there's a lot of problems, maybe stay right there. It might work.
Maybe, but I think that is the one thing that I think we are a little confused on, that nobody can read anything other than Dale says he can read top shape when they're right there at the bottom of your feet, which is fine. But I think the more often you would separate yourself from the pack, cut through the holes, be at a distance where the judge can still see and evaluate your hog, but there's not 5 others on top of you. I think that's the way to go.
I think that's just very logical. I can't imagine anybody would not want that as a judge. I'm probably wrong.
Then why do they yell at the small children to do different?
I think we're nervous. We're not thinking clearly. All those things. I want to take that on to another one, and you talked about it a little bit, Ryan. That once we're bringing those hogs in, get your look, move out of the way, and you don't have to drive real hard while the judge has got his back to you and he's pulling the rest of the hogs into the class. And I'm going to talk about endurance on these hogs. And when I say endurance, just having them in shape and the standpoint that if you're out there for any length of time or you're going in the ring for showmanship, maybe the same hog back in there for class and champion drive and grand drive. And if it's pretty hot out, these hogs that are in shape hold up so much better, even in a longer showmanship class. The ones that are used to being walked that much and they have that kind of endurance built up that can handle it is going to be much, much better than that one that just isn't used to it and they get tired. As soon as a hog gets tired, they're done. They're going to that out gate. And sometimes there's not a whole lot you can do to prevent it. We always want to avoid that and try to anticipate that, hey, they're going that way. Let's turn them off. But some of these hogs, when they're hot and tired, they're done. And I want to bring up with that, not only putting the miles in at home, but I don't want you at home just walking your hog. I want to be very clear with this. Every time that hog comes out of the barn, I would prefer, and I'm sure there's people out there who are going to tell you differently, but I'd prefer you have that hog in a manner that you're going to present it in the show ring. And you use very similar techniques and let that hog understand what you want, whether it's tapping them to get that head up or just showing them the whip to turn, all of these things. I want you mimicking that 1 hour walk at home or however long you're going to walk, just like you would if you're in that show ring. There's less confusion with that pig at that point. So not only are we building endurance, muscle memory, cohesiveness, whatever you want to talk about. Ryan mentioned that you, when you first come in, you know whether that person's been working with that hog or not. I want to keep things that when you approach that hog and you get the whip or the pipe or whatever out and you go to take them out of the barn, it's the same situation when you're walking into that ring. It's all the same. I think that consistency is going to go a long ways for us.
I think in every species, I know we're specifically talking about hogs, but in every species, when you're at home, you better practice like you play. That's just how it is. Like,
now, I'm sure there's some that don't agree with that, but I feel pretty strongly on this one.
No, I agree too. And again, I'm going to catch some flack on this. I know that a lot of times, and depending on what judges think, like I tell people all the time that I am going to use the showman regardless of species. That if I had the grand champion hog there and I could pick any kid on location to show it, to get me the banner and get me the backdrop, that's who's going to win showmanship. So to me, it's not a quiz bowl or an obstacle course or who can get in and out and shut the gates the smoothest, the fastest. But like Dale said, you have to be good at all of those things probably, because you never know when a showmanship judge is going to care about those things a great deal. And so getting in and out of the gate, you're just going to have to practice that at home. Always make sure, and I've seen it 100 times, and I never, it bothers me because like I see the kids shut the gate, they think they got it shut all the way, and they don't. And I don't care, but like I know that bothers people. So just make sure that you get your gates latched and shut and all that. And one thing, when you're letting out of the gate after you've been pinned, whatever, everybody's worried about like making sure that hog's head up and all that stuff. And that's cool. But like, give it a couple taps, turn around, get that gate shut and get back in the ring. Let's not go halfway out in the ring and then run back and get the gate and all that. But on questions and showmanship, a lot of people are going to ask them. I'm not, but a lot of people are going to ask them. I think the basic things that you need to know are what you feed, how often you feed, what your animal is out of, sire and dam wise, what the age is, just some basic stuff.
Probably the positive and negative aspects of your pig.
Positive and negative of the pig, stuff like that. Basics like that. If it goes much deeper into a quiz bowl than that, for me, I don't know what to tell you.
And some will, but that'll get you a long ways. Definitely get you a long ways. So I think, Ryan, when you're talking about that, and I'm going to go off into a couple different things, and I've got a lot of them I want to talk about. And you talked about showing those animals at home just like you do at the ring or at the show. I'm going to talk just about having that hog show broke, and that's part of it. But guess what? And just, would you say 90% plus are using whips now? There's not many pipes. There's pretty close to that. So if you use a whip, and that's great, I want you to use it as a guide, now I'm going to emphasize this, Ryan, not
a weapon.
Tap, 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 tap.
No.
No. not that. And I see so much of it, and I'm sure it bothers me and it doesn't bother others. So we have to be careful with how I say that. Just go back that everybody's not going to be the same. But I can remember a few years ago, Ryan, before every single kid focused on getting the head as high as it possibly can, irregardless of whether the pig can walk then or not. But prior to that, when we had pigs that were naturally high-headed would go, and you notice them, and others they'd bring up enough but still find that happy medium. Now it's as high as we can get on a lot of kids, and they inhibit that ability to get around the ring. What I would like to see, or what I've seen in the past, is when we show them that whip's used not to necessarily even touch them, but to use it as a guide or a steering wheel. We show them that whip, they know to veer to the left or veer to the right. And I don't see that as much anymore because it seems like we're on that pig with whip all the time to keep the head up. I think you can show them the whip to keep the head up if trained right at home. I'm not saying every pig's going to cooperate all the time, but I can assure you, I can go way back in time. There's a pig family here called the Maloney's, Craig and Dana Maloney.
This is also, he just said, don't remember something that 25 years ago might not be relevant.
Yes,
now we're going back into the time machine.
I'm going to use an example. Craig and Dana Maloney, they now both reside in Oklahoma. Their father, Rick Maloney, was the secretary of the Hampshire breed at the time. They were miles ahead of most people in Illinois or even the Midwest when they were showing, and they were so good. They were as good as I've ever seen about showing that whip, and these pigs' heads were coming up before anybody had ever even talked about it, and they'd rarely have to touch that pig, and they would get it to go exactly where they wanted to, and it made a big difference, not just in showmanship of the show. But that's interesting to me, and I still see some of the families or the kids. It's now Dana Goss and Goss Show Pigs out of Oklahoma, and she's still very involved in the pig industry. And some of those kids that she works with, I still see that in them, and it's impressive to me. But that's a personal preference. If you take two whips out there and you've got them on each side, just tapping that pig to get them up, I can't see how they're moving. I can't see anything, and it bothers me, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I think that Dale's point that the whip is the steering wheel, and like you can use it without ever touching the hog. If you just put it up there, make it veer one way or another, that you can do it. My pet peeve is on this deal, and again, it's not for everybody, but like if the hog is going the right way and everything's lovely and the head's high and then don't tap it. Just let it go.
No, let it go. Be thankful.
Just let it go. Just be happy. And
that's a good thing if that hog can present itself without you on it all the time. That tells us this hog's a good one.
Yeah. And I've seen that more and more here in the last year where the hog is going, the head's fine, everything's good, and yet we're still just
maybe a nervous habit. I mean, there's a lot of things that come into play, but I'm with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely with you.
My thing is like, and I've said this in time, do not use the whip as a weapon. Let's not use it as a weapon.
Do not. Steering wheel, guide, whatever you want to talk about.
Not a weapon. I think the basics of hog showmanship is eye contact and making sure that you drive correctly and try to surface out and find the nooks and crannies where other people are, all that stuff. Keep that animal going at a proper rate of speed, not too fast, not super slow or anything like that. Because, and I will say this again, the rate that animal walks at naturally is the rate that animal is the most comfortable at, depending on their structure. And so that's going to be the most comfortable for that animal. So when you're letting the animal walk at the rate that they want to, unless cranky or in a bad mood, the hog is going to be happier and it's going to make everything easier on you.
No, there's no question. I can't emphasize exactly what Ryan said there. And I want to make it even more clear yet that when they're moving like that, we can see that skeleton. I mean, when we crank it way up, when we're tapping that pig or doing whatever, every time we tap, there's sometimes a hesitation or a stutter step, or we've gone too high and they don't want to go forward. Man, if they're willing to get the head high enough and just float out in that ring, that's huge. Absolutely huge.
And so those are things that I think everybody's going to look for in showmanship. People, I get asked a ton, what makes the little differences to you in showmanship or things like that? And since I judge showmanship on how well you can present, whether you're in showmanship or in an actual show, I think hog showmanship is very different from all the other species because everyone's constantly in motion. There is no set format where you walk around and stop and all this other stuff. So I think that you have more opportunities to show off your animal's assets if you're truly a great and gifted hog showman. For instance, I am a big structural person. So if your hog's front end isn't perfect, or they roll, or whatever Dale likes to call it, club-footed, probably don't want to drive that one directly at me unless I say, bring that one at me. You know, if
that's being intelligent about knowing your flaws and your pauses on your hog, and don't be afraid to hide a flaw from us. It's okay.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
That shows that you know what you're doing. If yours is way good looking and sound, maybe not as stout as some, keep that one on the profile. If yours is burly and stout and got a huge back, whatever, you might want to show the rear view of that hog off a little more. I mean, those are things that, depending on the individual hog that you're showing stuff, those are little things that make a difference to me in showmanship. And you can tell on almost every kid if they're trying to get one to go the right way or go the way they want, instead of just driving the hog around and trying to avoid everybody else. And so, and I cannot emphasize this enough, and I don't hear many people talk about it, but I think what really makes the difference in a good hog showman and a great showman is anticipating what's going to happen in the ring. And then I get asked, well, how do you teach that? I don't think you can. I think how you anticipate what happens is, some of it you got to have a feel for it. And that means that you've got to have done it a lot of times. Other way is you watch and you watch and you watch when you're not showing, and you see all these things that happen, like how to maneuver through the middle of the ring and keep out, or when one is running right beside you, how to cut away from that one so you're not getting blocked. You have to anticipate what all the other hogs in the ring and those showmen are going to do, so you can correct yourself and make it the best for you. And I don't hear many people talk about that, but I can see it on the kids that are the truly great and gifted showmen. They anticipate when something is going to happen, and they correct or they adjust so they're still doing what they need to do.
I love it. I think that's so accurate, Ryan. And if you get up there at the ring and you watch that judge, if you've got several classes, they're gonna have somewhat of a pattern. I'm not going to say they're going to move to each part of the ring with each class exactly the same, but you can pick up some patterns and anticipate where they're likely to be at a certain point, and try to get yourself in that right position. And Ryan used that word anticipate. You know when your hog's starting to get tired, and those darn things are smart enough, they know where that outgate is. If you think for a second, I don't care where you're at in the ring, that hog is got in his mind or her mind that we're going to the outgate. We're gonna anticipate this ahead of time. We're gonna veer off way before we get there. There's nothing worse than on a hot day, those tired hogs that are standing 4 deep at that gate just squealing. I'm out. Those are not my champion hogs if I have a choice usually. So that is all good. There was something else Ryan mentioned earlier about you see it all the time, and I'm sure the kids are nervous when they come out of their pen and they realize, oh no, I didn't fully latch my gate or I missed it, but they realize it about 10 steps out and they go back to get it and so forth. I appreciate this, and this probably doesn't apply, maybe doesn't even apply to Ryan, but if I've got a kid that happens to be near that pin or that gate that popped open, and it's not going to distract from their pig to quickly reach over or smoothly shut that gate as an exhibitor, even just to help the flow of the whole show because that gate's not blared open. I'm not saying walk across the whole show ring to go shut a gate, but if you're right there and that gate pops open or whatever, anything you can do that's courteous to another exhibitor or helps the flow of the show in front of me, and I pick up on that, you're going to score points. That's that simple. I'm not saying you're going to win because of it, but it leaves a very positive impression in my mind.
I agree with that completely. And I mean, being a good sport, regardless if it's closing a gate that didn't get closed or anything like that, yeah, that's always going to make a positive impression on people. But
you just hit on something, Ryan. And you've told me stories. Being a good sport and the showmanship or the show, I'm telling you what, whether it's a show or showmanship, and you go out and you're disrespectful to the others or the judge as myself or anybody, and you're being a bad sport, period. And I see that. Wow. I'm just telling you, it's a big hurdle next time you come in.
The majority of the people that do this want to win and they're competitive. And so when it doesn't happen, it you're not excited and sometimes, but I think the thing to do is just to keep your composure until you can get somewhere to express that, because if you express it in the ring and it's seen by the judge or other people around there, it's not going to be positive from there on out. So yeah, being a good sport I think the main thing on showing hogs and stuff like that is that I think that you have to, it's so much different than the other species, because people ask me all the time, like, do you want me low? Do you want me high? Talking about their body posture and stuff like that.
Or where they should hold their offhand, their non-whip hand.
And stuff like that. I want you to do what looks natural to you. And so, I think you have to figure that out yourself. Very few times has a kid lost or won showmanship under me because they were really low or stay whatever. I think one thing is, like, wherever you can maneuver that hog the best and drive that hog, that position, find the comfort zone for you, stay there. I think the distracting part is when somebody goes super, super low and then jumps up and stands real tall and all that
real
stuff.
Stiff. Yeah.
Right.
I think leave the exaggerated body motions somewhere else.
That's the thing. I mean, like, we all know that you're going to have to at times get low to make a turn and, get the head up, stuff like that. But when we do the up and down, that gets distracting to me. And so I get that question a lot. And I think as long as you're trying to be as natural as you possibly can in your body movements and your posture, the better off you're going to be.
And I've got something that's maybe a little off track, but this did inhibit, and this was back when I was actually helping my nephews, actually helping Kate. I noticed this many years ago, Ryan. We're going way back, and I still see it today. We're so concerned about making sure that skin and hair's right and keeping them off the bare concrete years ago. And I'm sure there's some families today that still do this. We'd have these pigs, we'd feed them on a shaving pack, maybe 5, 10, 12 inches of basically pack. I mean, they could root down and get to concrete, but for the most part, they're on those pack shavings all the time. Guess what that does to their pads, how soft and tender that makes their pads when they're never on any hard surface.
Mm-hmm.
And we would go to get them out of the gate off of the shavings onto concrete. They wouldn't want to go because those pads are so tender. They'd hit a hard surface. They wouldn't go. And it was always a problem to get them through a gate. And that became a mental challenge for them. We thought we were doing them a favor by making sure we don't ever injure the pads or any of these things, just super protective. In all reality, we're making them kind of wimpy, where I can go the opposite direction now. If I'm redoing things, I take them out on concrete. I don't mind taking them across gravel, younger, not right before a show, but just toughen those pads up, because we have a lot of issues with unsound pigs that bruise a pad or tear a pad or something because we baby them a little bit. And I was the worst of it. We couldn't go to a show when they get that pig pinned, or if you're coming out of the pins to get into the show ring, Ryan, even if there's shavings in the pin and shavings in the show ring, that pig didn't want to go through the gate because of that image or that mental burn that they had in their mind, that every time they went through a gate, they felt some pain when they stepped down. And if you can't get your pig out of the pen, how well does that work in showmanship?
No, not so well.
No, not so good. And there's one more thing I want to bring up, and I know you're going to chime in on this one. Guys, and I know every show has their own rules. And Ryan talked to me about this the other day, and it gets me too. We're showing pigs shaggy now. And I get it. That's the trend. I don't know if I'm a complete fan of it, but it is what it is. Don't be overfitting. Don't be painting. Don't be doing any of these things unless you're pretty good at it, because you're going to distract. You're going to take away from that hog. I want you to understand one thing. Remember, everything that you do should be for a reason, not just because you've seen somebody else do it or you saw somebody else do it. You need to implement a logical approach to everything that makes sense, and you'll have a positive impact on that animal's ability to succeed, or your ability to succeed. Not if you're doing something or feeding something and you're not even sure why, don't do it. That makes no sense at all. There needs to be a purpose behind everything, whether it's supplements, because somebody said this supplement works. Well, if it's somebody you trust and has had success, maybe, but I still suggest use the supplement, judge for yourself, make those decisions yourself, not just because an advertisement said something or somebody else said something. Same with exercise. I get a lot of questions on goats and sheep, and we're getting off target, but we can apply it to hogs as well. How can I exercise to build immediate muscle mass? How can I mass them up by this weekend? That doesn't happen. If we're building muscle, we're tearing muscle fibers. We're allowing enough biologically available amino acids to repair those muscle fibers and build bigger each time. Then we tear them and rebuild. That's a long process, and we can make some minor gains over that. We can feed hard, high calorie to put some fat on the animal to maybe thicken them up from a white meat standpoint. We can do some of those things, but make sure what you're doing makes perfect sense. For example, I know on our feeds, and I'm sure this isn't going to be popular, we feed a certain feed from weaning until 40 pounds and 40 pounds to 120 and so forth. I don't suggest you make a change just because a pig weighs a certain amount. Look at that pig and make that judgment call. Do we need more energy? Do we need more protein? Where do we need to be? More or less of all these things. And the same thing with showmanship. I'm not opposed to you watching good showmen and mimicking. I'm all in on that. But make sure that for the most part, you understand why they're doing those certain things. And I think that's going to make you more successful, not just in showmanship, but in the show industry in general.
I'm glad you brought that last part in, because I don't know where the hell we went during all this other shit to get to that last statement, but
we got
it home. We got that plane landed on that last statement.
I want people to do things for let's just go to show. I want them to do things for a purpose, not to do it and not even know why. That's what gets me.
I got it. We went through feeding and exercise.
We did. We went through a lot of places
to get there, but we got it.
And I lied. I did have one more thing, and then you can rant all you want. Okay, and again, I'm going to use a cattle show as an example. Sometimes, Ryan, you go to shows.
This is the hog showmanship.
Yes. Okay, let's go to hog showmanship. It's fine. You've been to shows, Ryan, before where you've done showmanship before the actual show, and you're the one doing both. Mm-hmm. Agreed?
Yes.
Yeah, it happens. And sometimes it's great I would prefer if you have a show of enough numbers or financial ability or whatever, I would much prefer you have two different judges doing that. And if you don't, I personally want to do showmanship at the end, because guess what? I've watched them all day, and that's all part of it in my mind. I know some people say, oh, you should only count when they come in showmanship. Bullshit. Ryan, you've already formed opinions. If you're doing it at the end of the day, you have a pretty good idea. If individual A comes in, they're probably going to win unless they do something really stupid. It just is what it is. If you come into showmanship, I had judging a show a couple weeks ago. Here comes this, and you're going to be mad. I'm going off species. Here comes the burliest steer I've ever seen in terms of hair. I mean, unbelievable leg hair, body hair, everything. And he comes into showmanship. He's not fit. Not even remote. No, they just brought him for showmanship. We're going to fit him later for the show. Well, guess who's judging the show?
You.
It's me. And I'm telling you, there's so much hair, you could hide a lot of things. And there were some things that I definitely picked up on because it wasn't fit. If you've got a pig going into showmanship, make sure it looks like it needs to, as if you're going into the show. Don't just bring it in if they're going to see it again. If it's somebody totally different, you don't want to fit, especially for whatever reason, I get it. But if you've got the same judge that's going to be evaluating you in the actual market or breeding show, I strongly suggest you make that hog look right if you can, or as best you can, when you hit that ring for showmanship. And Ryan and I are probably different. A lot of people are. Some kids value showmanship more. Some kids value the actual show more. Figure out where your priorities are. But if you value that show a lot and you're going to show an animal to that judge prior to the show, it better look the part.
Okay.
Enough of a rant.
I think you have some good points there.
It's that same first impression. You're not going to get out of your head.
I think that's a very valid point. I agree with Dale on the fact that if I am judging showmanship and the show, I would prefer showmanship to be at the end. This is when I'm judging, because it's like you said, I pretty much have a real good idea in my head how it's going to go. If I am showing at a show, regardless if there's one judge or two judges for showmanship, I want hog showmanship at the beginning, because my pig hasn't hit that ring and figured out where the ins and the outs and the exits are. So
agreed.
I am going to say that. But again, and I know this didn't cover everything, but it is a more in-depth thing on hog showmanship than what we have got to do before. I think one of the best things that Dale said throughout the whole thing is everything you need to do needs to have a purpose behind it. I agree with that. I think the purpose needs to have common sense in it as well. And regardless of species, whether it's the only way to continually improve on your showmanship is not only to practice with that animal at home, but I promise you, and if the kids that are listening to this, they're going to be like, well, that's just terribly boring. Watching as much of the show as you can, whether it's to figure out the judges' patterns, know other things, but also just to see how other people do things, how other people react to situations, to see situations that you may never have encountered in a ring before. All of that is knowledge, and where there's knowledge, there is power. I promise you. I think watching actual shows and watching other people show and having that experience, seeing how everybody reacts to things, seeing different judges, listening to what they say, all that, I think it is equally as important as practicing at home. I really, really do. And not many people will say that, but
I am totally with you, Ryan. And everybody preaches about the practice at home, and everybody's doing it. You better be doing it, period, because everybody else is for the most part. But guess what? I don't see, Ryan. I'm going to tell you just what you said right there. That's as big of a place to be the game changer where you can improve yourself, because I think fewer kids are doing that than what I would expect. Does that make sense?
I had no friends when I was a kid because every time I wasn't having to do something at my stall or get my animals ready for the show, I was at the ring watching. And they'd be like, God, you're boring. Let's go do this. I was like, and that's what I did. And
I'm telling you, that doesn't happen very often. There's not a lot of showmen doing it.
I attribute a great deal of not only my success in the arena, but my success as a judge, all that stuff. Because even to this day, when I'm at a show, even if I'm not judging, and if I'm going to be up at the ring, I'm going to be watching, listening, everything. A lot of times, it's very painful for me. I'm not going to lie, but I'm still doing it. I am not sitting there gossiping or talking or whatever. I'm paying attention and watching and listening and learning, because again, once we stop learning, we stop living, and knowledge is power. And I think it's equally as important as what you do at home.
Yeah, parents, exhibitors, please listen to that. And I know and Ryan's right. It's going to be boring, and you're going to be probably by yourself.
I wasn't bored.
We can gain so much ground, and everything that Ryan said right there. If you want to look for the spot where you can make the most progress, that may be it, because there's so few doing it. I hope that makes sense.
No, I wasn't bored. I know I'm weird. Y'all probably will be. I still say you should do it.
Before we get into question and answer, Ryan, do you have any more sponsors?
I do. I do have one more, and I want to thank Brent Graves from Stock Show Auctions and Stock Show Pro for being a top 10 award sponsor. And Brent's a great guy. He called, I think, the end of December, and we're like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And then he's in Texas too, and major shows started happening, and we didn't get anything done until right here. But he is a sponsor, and we really appreciate all that he's done for the BTRJLA. StockShowAuctions.com has proven to be the go-to platform for junior exhibitor auctions, hosting online, simulcast auctions for county shows and large fairs from Maryland to California. StockShowAuctions.com is the first competitive livestock platform to offer full multi-camera production, sales management, and marketing services for junior exhibitor auctions. They are now offering their services to prospect auctions in the beginning of summer of 2022. If you want to take your county sale of champions or your prospect sale to the next level, and please contact StockShowAuctions.com. Dale didn't know about this till I read it the first time, but there's also a Stock Show Pro app, which allows exhibitors of all ages and their ag teachers, extension agents, parents, breeders, anyone to compile and share daily information about an animal's feeding program, supplements, medications, and weight gain. This information can be tracked, shared, tweaked throughout the show season, giving the exhibitor real-life daily management experience and data tracking, as well as forecasting ability. Exhibitors can share their barn with those advising their project, allowing them the opportunity to enter ration changes, medication schedules, other instructions anytime without endless phone calls, text, etc. Sharing among feeding partners assures accuracy for the exhibitors program, especially during those crucial busy holiday breaks. Visit StockShowPro.net today and download it on iPhone or Android devices and get the Stock Show Pro app. So Brent Graves, thank you very much. Stock Show Auctions and Stock Show Pro, y'all go check them out. We appreciate their support.
I think it sounds like a great tool. And they're not going to make change. Nobody's going to recommend a change unless there's a purpose and logic and common sense behind it. That app bans it. When you put it in there, it just deletes. Yeah, it's great. It's great. I mean, I am in.
Oh, shit.
Okay, question and answer. Are you ready?
Yeah, I guess.
Now, the first one kind of pats us on the back. That's why I chose this one, just because it's.
I'm sure you would.
Robin says, "Hey guys, just wanted to let you know that you have a wonderful podcast. Even though you might not know, you are most definitely making a difference in the livestock industry. For example, before I started listening to the podcast, I rarely cleaned water buckets. I might have rinsed them occasionally. As a result of the podcast and listening to you mention water intake is directly correlated to feed intake.
You've done this one already.
This is a nuts. I'm 90% sure it's a new one. She's sent several in.
Oh,
okay. So we got a correlation. She's just acknowledging all that. On another note, what is a good exercise regime for sheep?
Yeah. Okay. That whole water bucket thing. No, we had already had that one. Exercise regime for sheep. Well, you're the sheep and goat guru, so get after it.
Well, I want to go back, and I should have tried to pull more pig questions. Obviously, I never really thought about that until just now. But anyway,
so next week on the we'll have all pig questions. That'll be fine.
So I don't. There's no way to answer that without knowing the individual. And Robin, I think if we go about this, if we are in a situation where we want to burn calories, I think aerobics and just getting the cardio up, all those things, anything that's going to burn calories to keep them a little bit leaner, that's good. As I talked about earlier, if we're trying to build muscle on a sheep, they're pretty athletic animals for the most part. We have to go pretty hard, whether it be on a track and use some adrenaline from that track dog to get them excited and so forth. We really need to tear those muscle fibers. If it's a treadmill, instead of going forward, we're going to have to go backwards and be pretty aggressive about it. Then you've got to be careful because you're going to screw with the stride and that hip and hind leg a little bit if you go too hard. So it's hard to say, here's the one. If you have a fat sheep, we want to run them. We want to burn calories. If you have a sheep that needs to bulk up, let's feed hard, make sure available amino acids are there and tear those fibers, rebuild, all those things. So it's hard for me. I think for most sheep people, we're either on a track with a dog or on a treadmill. Going to go to a walker just for braking purposes and maybe burn a few calories, but primarily treadmill and track is the direction we're going to go. But get guidance from somebody locally that can get eyes on and again, do it for a purpose. If you're trying to build muscle. We don't need to burn a lot of calories in. That's a little self-defeating. If we need to just keep them hard and keep them hard, firm to the touch and lean enough, then we're gonna just go flat track and whatever we can do, burn calories forward on the treadmill. So I don't have a great answer, Robin, but I appreciate the question. I think it's good because I get these kind of questions on a regular basis, whether it be with sheep or goats or whatever it may be. And there is no magic wand to it. It's simply we need to adapt to fit where that animal's at that point.
I have something to add.
Yes.
Unless you're very experienced with track dogs, don't use them.
I would agree. I've attempted track dogs. You want to know how much luck I've had with them?
Just saying. That is
I can't command a dog well enough to even be a track dog.
That is my advice. Unless you are very
but those people that are good with those track dogs and you've got a good track dog, it's a game changer. It's huge. But yeah, good luck with that because it's not only buying a good dog, you have to understand how to work that dog. Clayton gives us the next question. I love the podcast and would like to know your thoughts on focusing on showing one species versus multiple species. What should I do?
That's all you, versus multiple species. I am not a good person to answer this question because I literally showed every species, even goat. And I will say we did focus more on the cattle. I wouldn't say primarily because I showed a lot of sheep too. I liked showing hogs. My parents did not like me showing hogs, so I didn't get to do that as much. But we had one goat my last year. But I think here are the things on if you're going to show multiple species. It takes more people, more time, more effort, and more money if you're going to show multiple species. And if you have that, and that's what you want to do, I say get after it. Because again, I think the fact that I did it all, have helped people with every species since and stuff like that, just makes me more well-rounded, more knowledgeable, more experienced, maybe not knowledgeable, but more experienced about things. And so, yeah, I think that's great to be a multi-species showman. I also think it is just that. Do you have enough help to do multiple species? Do you have enough barn space? Do you have enough money? It is
going to be hard for one person to do it all, period.
Right. Those are the things you have to, evaluate at your own program. Because I guess I tell people this too, if you're driven enough and you got a situation, I think everybody has equal opportunity to be good or great at everything. The more limited you are in all of these things, whether it's time, whether it's, financial, or you just don't have a big, huge support system there and can't hire one, then maybe you would be better focusing on one species and being the best you can at that.
Absolutely. That's perfectly said, Ryan. And if you're going to go to multiple, I would want you to have I'd want you to have success in the first one you're in before you move on. Master one before you try to do multiple. Be another direction. But excellent. Jen, what can be done? See, I did this. I didn't know I did it. What can be done to break our show pigs from being barn sour?
You talked about this already.
Well, not a lot. No. Well, yes and no, but no. I think she's talking just like what a horse. You just can't get the damn things away from the barn. Period.
Oh,
they want to go back to their pens. I think that's what she's referring to. I don't know this.
I have no experiences with horses.
Okay, well they do. Some horses just want to stay in their stall.
If it is that the question on wanting that they don't want to leave the barn, leave the pen, etc. I think depending on how your thing's set up, when we were feeding several hogs here for some of my parents' friends during county fair season years and years ago, we'd have this.
That is not legal.
Yeah, well, they all lived in this county. So, yeah, it was perfectly legal, sir.
Go ahead.
We would change up, like, either the pen that they're in, or we would move them to the other barn where we had hog stalls, change the scenery. Other than that, I think it's just literally getting them outside of that barn every day. And sometimes it's going to take a lot of will or a board or whatever, but the more you... like a pig board.
Got it.
What did you think I was thinking?
I was
crazy?
thinking, remember you talk about assaulting a pig with a whip, or what were you saying earlier?
No, not a weapon, but like a
no
board.
Weapons. No weapons,
like
a board.
They sell
board.
those plastic boards. You can,
okay.
Just making them do it. It's forceful. Problem with pigs is they're the smartest animals there are, in my opinion.
And the smarter they are, the more sour they're going to be, just like a horse. And I throw a goat pretty close to it because those suckers can get terrible about it. Terrible.
Yes, you're especially yours.
Yeah, I can't explain it, but they will get barn sour or pen sour. They will go one direction and they don't want to go away from where their comfort zone is. So, but I think Ryan's right. Not only the more you can get them out of your barn at home, but the more you can get them to shows. It seems like just traveling to the shows, and we didn't do this enough with our kids when they were younger, but for the kids,
he still doesn't do it enough with your kids when they're older.
Oh, we got lots. It seems like there's just too many things going on. We never get everything accomplished that we want to.
Mm-hmm.
But No, I think, Jen, I hope that's what you meant. I think that's what you meant about being barn sours. I just don't want to walk away from the barn. And sometimes we see this even when you get to the show. You can use it like the out gate and where their pins are. They want to go that direction and maybe not the other direction. But Ryan, this was good. This was brilliant on your part. We're going to do our 3-part series. So next week we're going to do sheep and goats. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
But thank you very much for listening. If you didn't catch the Beyond the Circus and have any interest in world events and politics and I don't know, there's a lot in there. Assassinations, lots of different things. Please listen. It's on the same Beyond the Ring platform, not for people under 18 years old. Until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?